Predict, pick, and prevail in your fantasy football leagues with Nick Giacobbe and Nick Cap. From breakouts to busts, superstars to sleepers, these are the guys that will help you achieve fantasy glory. This is the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast.
Welcome everybody to Season 3, Episode 9 of the PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, where we give you our predictions, our picks, with the hopes that we help you prevail throughout Week 6 and the rest of the 2023 fantasy football season. I'm your host, Nick Giacobbe. Joining me is Nick Cap, who has a pretty big announcement that I'm going to not jump the gun on, so I'll give him the floor.
Well, finally a dad. I know we talked about it on the prior episodes, but Thursday at 3:30 in the morning, finally the baby is here. Baby's healthy. I'm back home, and Nick and I, we've had a lot of scheduling conflicts and hectic days the last few as I've been transitioning to that, and I know Nick has some big news as well. And we got a lot going on, but guess what? We're here for you guys. We're here for you.
We're doing the best we can with the timables that we're working with. So Nick is a father, and that's wonderful. Congratulations to him. And his son's first NFL game that is actually got to watch with him was the Bears and the Commanders. So I think he should consider being a fan of either of those teams.
I actually skipped out on the Bears Commanders game because we were in the hospital. And by the time all the visitors left, it was already 27-3. And I was like, all right, I'll save him for the London game and he could go watch Josh Allen and Trevor Lawrence.
So he's a Bills fan.
Football.
He's a Bills fan then.
Well, the Jaguars won, so I guess technically he's a Jags fan.
I will say this. We did have a baby bowl. Nick's brother is a big Denver Broncos fan, so I had dubbed that game the baby bowl. And whichever team had won that game would decide Nick's son's fandom, and the Jets did win. So feel really bad for Nick's son. He's going to have awesome parents, but it's going to be rough. Nick sentencing him to be a Jets fan. That's pretty bad. So that is pretty bad. Also in our league, Nick's team is excellent. Going into this week, he was a nice solid 4-0 with the most points in the league. He's now 0-1. So we're now on baby watch. I don't know.
And also in the baby bowl, I also played the same brother in fantasy, and he scored a whopping 232 fantasy points against.
In our 8 years of doing the league, that's very close to the high. I don't know what the high is. It's somewhere in the top 3 or 5. So, but joking aside, Nick's team is really excellent in our league. He is first in points forced by I think about 80, 100 points on yours truly, and his points against are very, very ridiculous.
My team. Points against. I can't believe
I think you're second in points against.
I'm number one. I'm beating the last place team is 0-5 and has 4 less points against than I do.
Very close.
My team has an average of about 175 points against.
And an average in this league is probably 140. I'd say maybe
140 to 150.
Yeah, something like that.
In that range. That's where you win.
So anyway, congratulations to Nick again. As for me, I'm going to be transitioning jobs in the next couple of weeks. So. Professionally, it'll be new for me, but personally, me and Nick's schedules will align a little bit better. So I can't promise how many episodes we'll pump out each week, considering Nick is still a new father and I'll still be transitioning, through certain things in my life. But we will be able to go live a bit more often. We will be able to have more content if we would like to, and most importantly, we will be able to provide Sunday shows for you once again. So we cannot tell you the first Sunday show just yet. It depends on my timetable and everything, but we will have live shows for you for Sundays and basically the back half of the season. I think this is week 6. So we're looking at around week 8 or 9. So you'll have us for the back half of the season on live. So that'll be a lot of fun. So those are announcements that we have for you guys. And aside from that, we have a fun show coming up today. We did have to work around our schedules this week, and we are not going to have as many segments as we normally do, but that's okay. And so without further ado, if this is your first time listening to us, thank you so much. We do the show normally once a week, but we'll be a little bit more, like I just said, once our lives get figured out in 2 or 3 weeks. And then we'll have a live show on Sundays. You could find our weekly shows on all audio streaming platforms: iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. If you haven't already, please subscribe to whatever platform you're listening on. If you're on iTunes or Spotify, please give us a 5-star rating and a review. It does help us grow those numbers. If you'd rather watch and listen to the show, go to our YouTube channel, PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast, hit that subscribe button, smash a like on any video that you do watch, and make sure you hit the little bell so you get notifications whenever we go live, whenever new videos pop up, and anything else. For our live shows, they will be broadcasted on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you want to join in on the chat and ask us questions, you can go to YouTube or Facebook. Twitter has disabled comments. Thank you, Elon Musk, for that. But you can go to YouTube or Facebook. YouTube, Facebook is Primetime Fantasy Podcast. And you can find us on all other social media platforms, PrimeTimeFFPod on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. So one segment today. We're not going to do a waiver wire because the show is going to drop on Thursday, assuming I can edit it tonight. We're recording on Wednesday. So no reason to do a waiver wire. If you have any waiver-related questions, you can tweet us, text them, not text. You don't have our phone numbers. If you do, that's okay. You can text us, but tweet us, Instagram, whatever. We could always help you with waiver questions. We have been doing that as well. So we're going to do a week 5 recap. We're going to talk about injuries. Basically, we're going to go game by game, give you any injury news and our biggest fantasy takeaway from each game. A lot of chunky stuff to talk about. So first off, the Chargers and the Browns are two of the teams on bye, but I did want to provide some injury updates that I saw. Austin Eckler, who's been out for the past couple of weeks, I believe he said that there's a 99% chance he plays this weekend. He's facing the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. It's either going to be a great game or it's going to be a Cowboys walloping. But if you drafted Eckler and you've been losing some games, you're going to get your number 1 pick back, it seems like. And as for the Browns, Deshaun Watson, I think it's a shoulder injury. I do forget the injury. Sorry about that. But he will be a game-time decision. That surprises me, Nick. I thought he was kind of almost ready to play like 2 weeks ago, and then he had the bye. So I don't know if he had a setback or maybe it was more serious than we thought. But that could be troublesome for Browns fans, for fantasy players. They have the 49ers. The spread opened at -3. I told everybody I could to take that spread. I think by Sunday it's going to be -7.
Yeah, probably. I totally agree.
Yep. All right, so we're going to move on to the games from week 6, and we're starting off with the Thursday night football game, the Bears at the Commanders. The Bears won 40-20. So, Nick, what's your biggest takeaway? It might be about your favorite wide receiver. So if you're going there, cool. If not, I'll take it.
So we did not watch the game, as I did mention. We were at the hospital that night. But to my surprise, I did see that my son's first day being on this planet, my favorite wide receiver in all of football, had the best game of his entire career, and is now all the way up to the wide receiver 4 on the season.
Ridiculous.
Pretty crazy when you think about it. That 1 week did carry him way up there, but he was pretty consistent the 3 weeks prior.
He's been a bit consistent. Yeah. I mean,
Yeah,
I don't know if he's
gotten
performing
it
to
together.
expectations, but he's up there.
Yeah, and there's a lot of running backs in that room hurt right now. I think all of them went down with injury at some point in the game and are going to miss multiple weeks. It's from what it sounds like. Maybe Roshan gets back this week.
So Khalil Herbert, I'm going to cut you off real quick here. Khalil Herbert has a high ankle sprain. He's most likely going to be out a couple of weeks. Roshan Johnson's still in concussion protocol. If Roshan Johnson does play this weekend and gets cleared, I think he's a good play because he will get the bulk of the carries and passing down work. But if not, I personally would not touch any Bears running back.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but they're going to have to lean a lot more on the running game. And now they're going to host Minnesota off 10 days rest against that awful defense. Justin Fields and DJ Moore, they've gotten their act together the last 2 weeks. And I hope no one really sold low on them a couple weeks back because the
Bears schedule gets really easy. I'm not sure if you looked at the Bears schedule. I only know because I have a couple Bears fans at work, but the Bears schedule over the next few weeks is very winnable. They have Minnesota, bad defense. Las Vegas, bad defense. At the Chargers, bad defense. Saints are a tough one. Versus Carolina, bad defense. At Detroit, bad defense. At Minnesota, bad defense. Versus Detroit, bad defense. Then they have Cleveland in the playoff. Arizona, bad defense. Atlanta, I think I would call them a bad defense as well. So, yeah, if you did trade for some Bears a week or two ago, good for you. If not, I'm not sure you're going to get an opportunity to because I think Justin Fields might start performing to his ADP. And I personally hope so because me and Nick both have good takes and bad takes. So one thing Nick had kind of set himself on is that Justin Fields was going to have a really, really good year. And he backed up with a bunch of really good stats. And we kind of talked about drafting Justin Fields.
Year. I did not say year. Good fantasy season if he doesn't break out. And right now he stands at the QB3 on the season after 3 very rough weeks. So
yeah,
he's starting to pan out and level out.
Yep. So I hope that Nick is right on that, and I hope that the bad defenses do allow Justin Fields to do kind of what he did, this past Thursday. So I don't think there's much to touch on. I mean, the Commanders stink. Like I'll keep shouting that, to the heavens. They might have the worst coach in the NFL. Like they're bad. The pass catchers are all kind of suffering. Jahan Dotson's not having the sophomore season we hope. Terry McLaurin's always a solid play, but still, And Brian Robinson had a pretty bad game. So I think that's all that's going to be said about that one. Titans at, Jags at Bills in London. Did you guys wake up for this one?
Yes, I did. I got to watch the
Okay.
whole thing. It was very entertaining game.
I watched the last quarter of it because, again, I worked really late on Saturday nights, and I was watching my USC Trojans go to triple overtime. So what was your biggest takeaway from this London game?
I mean, for me, there was not much to take away on the Buffalo side of the ball. Gabe Davis has become a lot more consistent as a player. I think he has 4 straight games with a touchdown now. So I really wanted him in leagues this year. I thought he was getting undervalued, and he's kind of paying off now. He's the wide receiver 12, so you drafted him very late. He still hasn't given you that big boom bust. Like, I know a guy that me and Nick really saw him as was like Tyler Lockett a couple years ago, where Lockett would give you like 5 bad games and then he'd give you like 3 game winning games on your week. And Gabe Davis the last 4 weeks, 15. Sorry, this is standard. Let me switch to PPR. Fantasy Pros keep switching it back and forth. It's a little annoying, but Gabe Davis, wide receiver 14, last 4 weeks, 21, 10, 15, and 22. So he's giving you the consistency that you need. So at this point, he's really got to be locked into your lineup.
As for me, Travis Etienne's really coming into that role that people hoped he would if they were drafting him in rounds 3 or 4. He had 126 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. He paired that up with 4 receptions for 48 yards. The thing that really surprises me and would make me happy if I was an Etienne owner, I'm not, is that out of the 5 games that he's played this season, he has 3 of them with 4+ receptions. In those 4+ reception games, his yards are 27, 50, and 48. So that's a swing of 9 fantasy points basically every week to pair it up with 50 rushing yards and touchdown potential both on the ground and in the air. So that's very important for him. We need to free James Cook. For whatever reason, the Bills don't want to, so we need to free him. And Calvin Ridley had a monster game, and Christian Kirk also had a really good game. So I'm still going to stand by my take and talk about it every week because I like talking about my take sometimes. All right. Next up, we got the Titans at the Colts. Nick knows how I kind of feel about these 2 franchises. Just like gross, like boring. It's just, they're not for me. Unfortunately, Anthony Richardson suffered his 2nd injury of the season. This time it was a shoulder injury. Last time it was a concussion. He's going to be out at least 4 weeks. It's looking like 4+ weeks, could even be season ending. Don't have a lot of information on that. If I was the Colts, I would shut him down. The team's not that good. I'm not going to make the playoffs. You saw what you had with him. I wouldn't risk it. Kind of gentlemanly tank and get him, a Marvin Harrison Jr. next year or something like that. Whatever. Get him whatever he needs to succeed next year. Also, Jonathan Taylor returned. So obviously he definitely had 165 rushing yards and 2 touchdowns.
After getting paid.
Nick knows my eyes aren't very good, but I'm looking at the ESPN right now, and I see the top Colts rusher, 23 carries, 165 rushing yards, 2 touchdowns. So, Nick, can you clarify just, are my eyes correct, or do I need to go see an eye doctor?
No, I mean, the Colts running back did do that. I just wasn't Jonathan Taylor.
Man, I knew they were going to put him on a snap count stuff, but like, that sucks.
10.
But I did see a report today that they're going to ramp him up this week. So hopefully
No.
change.
They didn't say ramp him up. They said he's going to get more than 10 snaps this week.
I thought it saw ramp him up.
The report was more than 10 snaps.
So maybe they're just like wasting money.
Oh yeah.
I don't know. What's your biggest takeaway from this one?
It's part of the reason I didn't really want Jonathan Taylor, even though he was dropping so far in drafts. We did not know how healthy he was going to be off the injury. And even if he was back in 4 weeks, we didn't know what week 5, week 6, week 7, what those are going to look like. And you saw a little bit of it. Zach Moss in that system is working very well. And obviously Jonathan Taylor is going to replace him. They didn't pay him not to use him. So now you're going into week 6 where you're facing the Jacksonville Jaguars. They're coming back from London off these hot 2 wins. They got to put up or shut up, and Jonathan Taylor's got to be out on that field and making plays. And unfortunately, you're going to have to stick him in your lineup because you used a very healthy draft capital on him, and you're probably lacking in the running back department right now if you did take him. So you got to slot him in, and unfortunately, I don't know if I can guarantee you it's going to be the Jonathan Taylor that's making $42 million this week. He will get better as the season progresses and as the season goes on. But for right now, you cannot expect if you see on your ESPN app a 15 to 20 point projection, do not expect him to give you that consistently.
On the Titan side of things, Tajay Spears, 7 carries, 34 yards, right under Derrick Henry, and he had a touchdown, 4 receptions, 35 yards. We might see a changing of the guard by the end of the season. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but
please no.
The time
Please
to get
give me Derrick Henry against the Texans twice.
The time to get Tajay Spears is now, especially in a keeper or dynasty league.
Yeah.
And also DeAndre Hopkins had a cool 8 for 140. I don't think that happens every week, but I would sell Hopkins. I would get rid of him as soon as possible if I could.
Okay.
Moving on, we have the Saints at the Patriots. Patriots stink. They're really, really bad. And I don't think the Saints are much better, but yeah, they're really bad.
No, New England's horrendous. They're absolutely terrible.
You can now play defenses against the Patriots, like
no.
Yes, you can.
Well,
yes, you can.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yes, I agree. I think that Saints defense is a lot better than people were saying.
Oh, I think it's very good. I just think the offense is kind of putrid, and Derek Carr is not the guy that we thought we were getting.
Sure, I agree with that. Even though he did have one of his better games of the season,
He did. He was efficient against a Pats defense that's pretty solid as well. I mean, that's the strong point of their team. I mean, they only gave up 34 points.
The only real takeaway for me is Ramondre. I'm sorry, you guys busted if you took him.
This is why I was so against a Patriots running back.
I really wanted him this year, and then they took Zeke, and I fell back on it a little bit, and he dropped very far in drafts where I was able to get him in 1 or 2 leagues. But my God, he's been abysmal to this point of the year.
Kamara looks to be pretty solid, through 2 games now. I mean, he had 80 yards here and a touchdown. I know last week I think he had 16 fantasy points, he had 3 receptions on this one. So if you did wait on Kamara, I think you're kind of reaping the reward of that one. Moving on, the Ravens at the Steelers. Deontay Johnson was out on the IR. Forget his injury, hamstring or something, but he's been out for a couple of weeks. But I am noting that only because he's expected to come off the IR this week. The Steelers won this game. I mean, I think you saw it on the red zone. I didn't, but they came back late. Mm-hmm. These division games are always tough, but maybe they're kind of finding something. I mean, Pickett at 224 and 1 touchdown, no picks. I mean, maybe salvageable.
I don't think so. I was looking at numbers, and I'm not a sports gambler, but I was looking at a lot of stats about this game, and for the last 6 or 7 times that they've matched up, the Steelers have only lost once. Every single game has hit the under. It's all been low-scoring games. Listen, Tomlin coaches very well. Tomlin always wins games, regardless of who's at quarterback. You remember Noodle Arm Ben. They put Mitch Trubisky in there for a little bit.
Noodle Arm Ben won me our fantasy points. I mean, him and
yes, he did.
Najee Harris was really the one, but I'm pretty sure he threw the little pass to him or something. I don't know.
Whoever's in that scheme, for some reason, he makes them work, and it's panned out. But on a fantasy takeaway, this Ravens offense is not great. We were told that they were going to pick up the pace of play with the offensive coordinator change, and it's a lot of reasons why Zay Flowers, Rashad Bateman were hot commodities. I loved Mark Andrews going into drafts, and he's starting to really pay off. But outside of that, I mean, the pace of play has not been fantastic. They're not moving the ball down the field as efficiently as they need to. And part of that is because their defense has been so stellar, where they haven't needed to play from behind and catch up in the air. But listen, they're not going to be as explosive of a team as you had hoped for.
For me, I'm going to keep patting myself on the back for this one. George Pickens, 6 receptions, 130 yards, and 1 tutty. I don't know exactly where he ranks in the wide receiver ranks. Maybe Nick could tell me. Probably in the top 20, but
13 right now.
So I mean, I'm happy with the pick that I made. I did pick him, I think, over Mike Evans, which probably maybe wasn't the smartest decision, but I was kind of all in on Pickens. So I don't know. We'll see where that take goes, but I do hope that does pan out. Texans at the Falcons. I did pay very close attention to this one. Tank Dell did leave the game, I think, with a concussion. I have not gotten an update on him, but I mean, your biggest takeaway from this one, which is a very gross game until the fourth quarter, by the way.
So I don't know if this is a great take necessarily, but it's something I want to keep my eye on for the next couple of weeks. I think Bijan Robinson is going to be very overvalued by people that are trying to trade him away. And I do think people should start to look to pivot off of him. The talent is obviously there, but from a fantasy perspective, his season outcomes the first 2 weeks 20 and 22, then it's been 10, 18, and 11. On the ground, he's gotten over 14 rushing yards in one of these games. He's only broken 60 yards in 2 of these games on the ground. In the air, he's getting a good amount of workload, but it's steadily declining. He's only seen 1 touchdown on the season so far. So he's not getting the dominant workload, and his draft buddy, Devon Achan, getting a little more comfortable with that one. Devon Achan is outperforming him, and I don't know. I don't think he's going to be as sustainable rest of season. I think he's going to be consistent, but I don't think he's going to be the first round draft pick anymore. I think he does finish in the top 10 at running back, but I don't think it's going to be RB1, RB2, RB3, which is where you needed him to outperform his ADP. So having said that, I do think a lot of people still find value in Bijan Robinson because his clips pop up all over TikTok and Red Zone, and you see him everywhere. Like, I would go consider trading him away and trying to get some package of like an Austin Eckler and a mid receiver later in your drafts, or go get Alvin Kamara, who's been very sustainable for the last 7 years in fantasy and has been really good this year, even though it's only been 2 games, and package him with a Mike Evans or something like that. Like, I think the name still holds so much value, and a lot of running backs have been getting hurt, season ending, weekend, like, injuries, and Bijan seems to be the healthy rookie. I think there's a lot of value there, and I think people should start considering trading him away because I don't think he's going to have too many ceiling games.
I think you make good points. I think my issue is that the Falcons' offense is unpredictable. I think it's almost like the 49ers offense. And hear me out on this. You don't know what you're getting out of it. You're getting McCaffrey in your 49ers offense, but then what is Debo doing? What is Ayuk doing? What is Kittle doing? Like 2 or 3 are going to pop off, but what are the numbers going to be for each one? Because Debo could put up a goose egg in 1 week, and the next week he could have 50 points. I think that's the Falcons' offense that you're looking at, except Bijan's not being used to the McCaffrey capabilities yet. Now,
Sure,
I would not pivot off of him just yet until I get a really big game and feel confident about pivoting off of him for a monster package. I still think he's really talented. I still think he's going to be the heartbeat of this Falcons offense, and I want to see what they do in the next few weeks because they might have found something here. Desmond Ridder had 329 passing yards. That's a career high. He only had 1 passing touchdown, but that's okay. Look at the receivers, though. Kyle Pitts, 7 receptions for 87 yards on 11 targets. Drake London, 6 receptions, 78 yards. Jonnu Smith, 6 receptions for 67. So I do want to see where they go because they are playing the NFC South teams. The Panthers' defense is atrocious. The Saints' defense is very good, but those games I personally think will be close since they are division opponents. Same reason I think Cardinals, Rams, and Cardinals, Seahawks games will be a lot closer than they should be. And then they'll also face the Buccaneers, who their defense is stout. But again, the Falcons' schedule should be favorable, through the rest of the season. So I wouldn't pivot just yet. Kyle Pitts, I would pivot off of him, and maybe Drake London too. Big games. I haven't been a fan of either going into the draft and now, obviously. So if you could get a package for them now, I personally would. So next game, Panthers at the Lions. How did the Panthers score 24? Because this game was over at halftime. Anyway, garbage time fun. So injuries for this one. Amon-Ra St. Brown missed the game with an abdomen injury. I know that did hurt fantasy fans. Hi.
Yeah.
And then he also, he did practice today, which is Wednesday when we're recording. No guarantee to play Sunday, but that's a good sign. As for Jahmyr Gibbs, he was out with a hamstring injury. He's not on IR just yet. He's not practicing on Wednesday. And David Montgomery looks excellent, so not good for Gibbs. And our buddy Miles Sanders came out of the game. I forget who the head coach of the Panthers is, slipping my mind, but Frank Reich. Am I right on that? Is it Frank Reich? Yep. I believe I saw a quote today that he said he came out of the game with something. I don't think he has an injury designation as of yet, but he's not supposed to practice on Wednesday. So, well, that said, your big fantasy takeaway from this one.
Just start your Lions every single week. Like, I don't care who's out there. Just play them. We warned you about Jameson Williams not coming back and not getting his full workload. This upcoming week, if Amon-Ra is in the lineup or out of the lineup, I want to start him. This team is so explosive and puts up so many points. They were missing I think their two most talented offensive pieces in Jahmyr Gibbs and Amon-Ra, and they still had found a way to post a ridiculous amount of points and get a consistent day for all the fantasy options. Like, they are so good, and you got to give Jared Goff a lot of credit, because for a guy that was traded out of a Super Bowl contending team, probably lost all the confidence in the world for being packaged just because he got a bad contract, as it was seen, for Matthew Stafford, and then giving 2 first-round picks. Like, the line, I know that if the Rams did not win that Super Bowl, the Lions made out like bandits, because Jared Goff looks just as good, if not better, than Matt Stafford in the last 2 seasons at least. So, having said it, just play your freaking Lions. And I know it's a Panthers matchup, so don't overreact, but like, their season gets just as easy rest of the way, and that offense is not going to slow down anytime soon.
You know what's really nice? When you draft a wide receiver, or who's the wide receiver 11 on the season, in like the 10th round, can you tell me from this game who that might be? Just curious. Adam Thielen. And I wasn't dead set on taking Thielen, but my reasoning behind Adam Thielen was, you're taking a possible wide receiver 1 in the later rounds for a rookie quarterback who's going to act like a tight end in terms of being a safety blanket, because Adam Thielen has always been good for 6 receptions, 60 yards, and touchdown possibility, getting the ball in the flat, etc. Was taking him as a flex play. Nick ripped me for it. Now let's look at his game log here. Since week 2.
We don't have to do that.
We'll do it. Since week 2, he has 7+ receptions in all 4 games. Since week 2, he has over 54 receiving yards in all 4 games. His lowest is 54, so I have to say that. And he also has 3 touchdowns in those 4 games. He's not going to continue this pace. So if you could trade him, another one you could trade. But he's proven he could be a solid flex option, because his targets are over 8 in all 4 games. 8 or more, I should say. So you could trust this guy in your flex, knowing he's going to get the target share. Even if he just comes out with 6 receptions for 60 yards, it's 12 points in your flex spot, and it's probably your last flex spot in a 12-person league. At least that's where I'm playing Adam Thielen. So this will be a serviceable player for you to use throughout the season, whether it's Bryce Young or Andy Dalton throwing him the ball, because there's nobody else there. There's rookies like Mingo is, a rookie, but I think he has a bigger second half of the season. Nick likes DJ Chark. I don't like Chark as much as Thielen. And I follow the money with this one. I know he's an older player, but they signed him to be the safety blanket. And he's producing, unlike, we'll go to the next game. Next game is Giants-Dolphins. They signed a safety blanket who is not producing. So that's how I'll transition here. The Giants at the Dolphins. This game kind of went exactly how I thought it would, except for the pick 6. Daniel Jones left the game with a neck injury. I think it was a neck at least. Didn't practice Wednesday. Going to be day-to-day. No update on that. Saquon Barkley remained out, but he is practicing Wednesday. Darren Waller has a groin injury. Did not practice Wednesday and has not been productive. And Devon Achane, unfortunately has a knee injury and will be going on the IR. Smart football move by the Dolphins, knowing that they'll probably be a playoff team. Bummer move for those of us who have Achane. So a lot to unpack here. The Giants, the next primetime games of football are, I said it a bunch of times, gross, disgusting, putrid, miserable. Like, I love football. I do. Tomorrow or tonight, if you're listening on Thursday, Broncos Chiefs. I think it's an Arrowhead. Ugh. Sunday, I'm pretty sure the Giants travel to Buffalo. Bad. Then Monday, I don't remember Monday. It might be Bears somebody. I'll look it up right now. I think Monday might be I think the Bears are the Vikings. Monday is Cowboys Chargers. That could be good. It might be a Cowboys walloping. It might be a Cowboys. We just got embarrassed on prime time. Now we're going to go out and kick the door down. So anyway, I digress. Your biggest fantasy takeaway from the Dolphins and the Giants.
Kind of like I said about the Lions, just start your Dolphins. I mean, I don't think that needs to be said enough. Mostert, who I liked going into the season, who's slowed down a little bit since Achane took over, he still managed to put up a touchdown and have a very fine fantasy day. And right now he is coming in at...
And now no Achane for at least 4 weeks. So
he is the RB2 on the season, Achane being the RB3. Mostert averaging 21 points per game. He's going to be, I think they said the earliest that Achan can come back is week 11. So you're going to see a
10 or 11,
lot
yeah.
of time without.
Because they have a bye, I think. They have a bye in there somewhere.
Yeah, I'll tell you my predicament that I have with Mostert. In our league, Mostert's a guy that I took. He's someone I've started from week 2 on. I have a debate in my head of, do I trade him away now to a team that needs a running back in the hopes to get a guy like, and maybe not, obviously not straight up, but like an Eckler or an upper echelon running back who on the back end of the season will perform? Or do I take the next 4 or 5 weeks, slam Mostert home and pray he can get me, a 1 seed and a ton of points where we get payouts for points in our league?
Yeah.
The impossible debate in my head. But having said that, I think Mostert is going to very much come into his own. He's going to rival Christian McCaffrey for that RB1 spot as we come in these next few weeks. He's so far ahead of the pack, those two. It's kind of ridiculous, and it's crazy to think that the Dolphins are the RB2 and 3 in fantasy for a team that wanted Jonathan Taylor and could not land him, and then Jonathan Taylor comes back and plays 10 snaps.
Yeah, I mean, I echo all of that. I think it's a really tough situation for managers to have Mostert because he's playing really well, but he has, been known to have some injury history. Jeff Wilson's also coming back, so it might be a waiver ad for those that need a waiver ad. Also, like Tyreek Hill went 181 and 1 touchdown. Like, I love the player a lot. I want to bash my head into a TV every time I see him do something because I can't believe I traded him away. Like, I don't know why. That was the one trade that I think I've done in a long, long time where I just didn't think and just kind of hit the button. Yeah. Miserable about it. Miserable. This is in Dynasty, but again, miserable. So, Bengals at the Cardinals. The Bengals did what I said the Bengals needed to do. They needed to wallop the Cardinals, and now they need to wallop my Seahawks. This is the football perspective coming out, not the Seahawks fan, but yeah. I mean, do you have Jamar Chase in the league? Like, what did you do to get Chase to do 15 receptions, 192, and 3 touchdowns? Like, did you bench him? Like, what did you do?
No. It was actually a very simple formula. My son was born, and I was playing against my brother. So of course he was going to go off. I mean, it was a perfect get right spot. I get 230 points dropped on my head. And my beloved Bengals, who I absolutely despise, go off for the best.
See, Nick has no reason to dislike the Bengals. That's the funniest thing about this. He has no reason to dislike the Bengals.
You're probably right.
He just does for some reason.
I don't like the state of Ohio, but
that's the only reason I could think of. Like, there's no other reason for him to dislike them. They haven't won anything.
You know what I think?
The players are pretty likable.
I think Burrow got too much hype too quick, and then he backed it up. But then I was like, well, you didn't fully execute, so I still don't like you. Also, the first season of this podcast, I bashed Jamar Chase, and then he ended up being a top 5 receiver on the season. That didn't help either.
Yeah, Chase had an awesome game. Nothing else to say from that. I mean, Burrow had a pretty good game too. 317, 3 tutties. I mean, that's the Burrow that people expected. The Seahawks defense is like Swiss cheese. I promise you, the Legion of Boom you saw in MetLife is not the Seahawks defense. Like, I'm just convinced, like, the ghost of Richard Sherman and Cam Chancellor, they're not dead, but you know what I mean? Like, the football ghosts just live at MetLife, and every time the Seahawks play there, they just kind of like rise up into that defense. But I promise you the defense isn't that good, and the Bengals should have an awesome day on Sunday. T. Higgins was out with a rib injury. He's technically day-to-day. We'll see if he plays or not. I think he misses another week.
He's going to miss a little.
I think so too. And James Conner, unfortunately, went out with a knee injury, and he's now on IR, which is unfortunate because he was a running back in that dead zone that I think me and Nick are both targeting. A lot of fantasy analysts were targeting. Guys like him, David Montgomery, DeAndre Swift, James Cook, Alexander Madison, I digress. And it's unfortunate because he had a pretty solid start to the season, so now he'll be out for a couple weeks, and that's unfortunate. I have nothing else to say about this game or the Cardinals.
I think both of these have what I would say the most fantasy takeaways and more things that you should pay attention to. The Bengals finally got their get-right game. For me, I'm trading away Joe Burrow today. The next few weeks do not look favorable. He's going to Seattle, who he should have a good game against. Then he goes by at 49ers, hosts the Bills. He gets the Ravens a couple weeks after that. He gets the Steelers.
The next stretch is really tough.
His playoff stretch is going to include the Steelers and the Chiefs in the championship week. who both have had very good defenses to this point of the season. So I think his final stretch is going to be really tough. I don't think the Bengals are making the playoffs. I'm going to stamp my foot on that still, even after their one very good game against a mediocre team. On the Cardinals side of the ball, there's a lot of fantasy relevancy. I think a lot of people are picking up the wrong free agent running back. Ingram is the guy that I'm targeting in that backfield. He was the guy that they had more hype around in preseason and in camp. And there's another running back who had more touches this week due to a limited workload to Miller. So there's a ton of people going for that running back. I see in Yahoo's the most picked up guy this week. So pivot to the other running back. I'll give you your warning now if you need your running back room.
I'm not dying over either running back because I know Connor will be back in 4 weeks. Most likely.
Okay.
Moving on to the Baby Bowl. The Jets at the Broncos. This game looked pitiful and disgusting on the red zone from what I saw. I'm looking at some of the stats now. I mean, like, this game is such a weird, like Adam Troutman and Jaleel McLaughlin had the passing touchdowns for Denver.
I told you to get Jaleel McLaughlin.
He did, but Javonte Williams is going to suit up this week.
So
Javonte Williams was out. I forget his injury, but he did practice Wednesday, and he should be returning this week. So your big takeaway, I mean, from this game, from a fantasy perspective?
The Jets are going to go send the Broncos into a tire fire sale, and it would have happened sooner if they weren't playing the Chiefs on a short week, which I was really looking forward to. Apparently, they already came out and told other GMs that they're willing to trade any single player outside of Russell Wilson. Kind of crazy that that's the one that they want to target and keep. If I were the Seattle Seahawks, I would package Drew Lock, Noah Fant, and go get Russell Wilson and 2 first-round picks, because that's really what the Broncos would need to give away to get a nice quarterback like Drew Lock.
Yeah, basically to carry that contract, they would have to send us at least a first. And Drew Lock looked really good on that drive. So did Noah Fant. So I mean, maybe that could spark the offense for Denver. Breece Hall, man, 177, along with 72, a touchdown. I know your bye's in 2 weeks. You have a really tough matchup this week against the Eagles. But after that, the bye, then coming out of that, Breece Hall is a real locked and loaded running back 1 in fantasy football.
He's a good trade for a candidate right now. The only concerns are the Jets' offensive line did lose their best offensive guard in week 1 and in week 5, where he had his 2 big breakaway runs. That offensive guard is the one that paved the lane for him to get that breakaway run. So that is my only concern about Breece, but he looks really good. It's just whether the game script's going to be right. In the last 2 weeks, it's been fine. Week 1, it was fine. And you see in the in-between weeks, he had less than 4 points in each of those. So he's going to be a flex play depending on the matchup. But on the back half of the season, the Jets' schedule gets significantly easier and a lighter load.
So an update on Tank Dell, just got it from Fantasy Life. He's making improvements in his recovery from a concussion, not expected to play on Sunday.
Wow.
Moving on to the Eagles and the Rams. A lot of scoring in this one. No scoring for the Rams in the second half, though. Cooper Kupp came off the IR. He had 6 receptions for 54 yards in the first drive. He ended with 8 receptions for 118 yards. Puka Nacua right behind him, 7 for 71 and a touchdown. This is why I kind of said that Puka's going to be fine, and I think he will be fine going forward. And I think this Rams offense is going to be very, very productive going forward. And if Stafford's your backup, I think you could be very comfortable with Stafford as a backup. So, with my little, initial take, what is your other takeaway or takeaways from this one?
I don't think there's much you could take away from the Eagles side of the ball. Like they're the same old Eagles. They're gonna fly high. Devontae Smith's gonna be up and down. Well,
he was consistent last year, and that's when I've had a couple of Devontae Smith managers text me that they're worried. But I mean, AJ Brown is on like a historic Eagles run over the past 3 weeks. I think he's the first Eagles receiver since somebody in 1970s to average 120 receiving yards in 3 straight games. And when Dallas Goedert has 8 receptions, 117 yards, like, you can only spread the ball around so much. So I'm not super worried about Devontae Smith. I would trade for him because his offense is really freaking good, and they're going to have a lot of competitive games, even if they're a good team. So I would trade for Devontae Smith. I think he'll be fine going forward.
I still would trade Puka Nacua away.
I'm not against that.
I know he played a good game, but I'm looking at the guys that he's in the range of. And Nick, we could play this game real quick. Which wide receiver would you rather have rest of season? He's currently the wide receiver 3, so I'll go to the ones right under him, DJ Moore or Puka Nacua.
I'd rather have DJ Moore. I mean, it's a wide receiver 1.
Would you rather have Jamar Chase or Puka Nacua?
Chase, obviously.
Keenan Allen,
Allen.
AJ Brown.
I'd rather
Devontae
take basically any
Smith,
wide receiver 1 over him for the most part.
Adam Thielen,
No.
Nico Collins,
No.
Hollywood's the wide receiver 12, which is kind of surprising.
I think I'd rather have Hollywood, but the Rams are going to score a lot of points this season. People have undervalued the Rams. They're going to be a good football team. Their defense is really solid. I know the Eagles put up 27 or 34, but they're the Eagles. They're really good. The Rams defense is still pretty solid. I don't know. The Rams are a playoff team.
Mike Evans.
I'd rather have Mike Evans. He's Mike Evans.
CeeDee Lamb.
I mean,
Brandon
you're naming like studs. Like
I'm going down through the top 20 receivers.
I'll say Ayuk here, though I don't love it.
Debo.
I think I might rather have Puka.
Christian Kirk.
Puka.
Okay, so you're pretty much slotting him in as the wide receiver 17 through 20 rest of season, which I think is totally fair. But for a guy that's the wide receiver 3 right now, can you package Puka with Jonathan Taylor and go get CeeDee Lamb or AJ Brown or Devontae Adams off
to the right manager?
Like my point is, like, I don't think Puka is gonna be 17 through 20 rest of the season. I think he finishes as a high-end wide receiver 3 rest of the year. And it's no slight to his talent. He's been phenomenal, but Cooper Kupp is going to totally take over that role. Unless if he goes down with another hammy injury, which we never root for in fantasy. So I don't know. I just don't trust it. I don't trust the rookie receiver to really keep up this pace of play and this production for the rest of the year. And I think he's very overvalued now, and I don't think you will be able to sell him as high as you can right now.
Okay, that's a fair take. Again, we're playing with hypotheticals and variables that, takes are takes. Chiefs at Vikings. Unfortunately, Justin Jefferson suffered a hamstring injury. He was placed on the IR on Wednesday. That's really unfortunate, especially, obviously first overall picked. And Travis Kelce, he stubbed his foot. It looked like he came back in, had a touchdown, a couple more receptions. Does have an ankle sprain. He played through it. He is playing on Thursday Night Football on Thursday. He's been limited all week, so I'm assuming he's good to go. I don't really have much fantasy takeaways from this one. I'm not sure if you have any, but I mean, it looks pretty, Chiefs defense is good. So Madison didn't get a lot of work. I think my other big takeaway is that, Jordan Addison, if you have him, he's going to get a really big boost, and so will TJ Hawkinson.
I don't think you learned enough or anything really from this fantasy game, but it was really hard. You knew that the Chiefs defense was going to be tough for Madison. You knew the secondary would be fine for their elite pass catchers. You knew the Chiefs wide receivers are still going to be a carousel. You knew Travis Kelce would be fine, and the running backs are questionable and in a flex play depending on where you're playing them. I don't think you learned anything. It's the exact 2 teams that you know.
Sunday Night Football, Cowboys at 49ers. I'm not shocked. I don't know if you were shocked at all, but I'm not shocked. Like, this is
no.
The 49ers are the team to beat in the NFL. Out of everybody. They look the best on both sides of the ball. The Eagles were excellent last year, and they're still an excellent football team, but I think the Eagles lost more in the offseason than the 49ers did. They look really great, and I don't care what team is facing the 49ers. Like, they're going to be really, really great. That's a big takeaway. I mean, the stats don't really jump out for anybody. I mean, McCaffrey was really good as always, had a touchdown, 50 yards, maybe only like 18 fantasy points, so I guess it's a low for him. Kittle was awesome, 3 touchdowns and 67 yards. But I mean, Cowboys defense really just dominated this game, and that's just what it came down to. It was tough for Tony Pollard to get going because of that. CeeDee Lamb only had 9 points because of that, and that's the game. The Cowboys will be fine. I'm not worried about the Cowboys, and I know what the 49ers are. I guess my big takeaway is that the 49ers are just a juggernaut, and if you have a player facing the 49ers, you may have to consider benching them. Even if it's like, I think there's only maybe 10 players that would be comfortable playing. I think that's my big takeaway.
Let's do that real quick. And it's another short, game to tease, but I think a lot of people will have those questions after you say something like that. So let's go through this 49ers schedule real quick and see who they got. They're going to play the Browns next. So you're looking at Jerome Ford.
I'm benching everybody. No Ford, Cooper. No Cooper. I'm benching them all.
Okay. Minnesota, they're not going to have
I'm definitely benching
Jefferson.
whatever running back it is.
So it'll be, Madison Akers. Bengals, you're probably not benching Jamar Chase, but T. Higgins, is he hitting the bench for you? Joe Mixon.
I need to see where the Bengals are, because the Bengals
Sure.
are a team that I know you're not as high on them as I am, but the Bengals are a team that if they beat Seattle and look good, they might catch some fire. They're
could.
one of the few teams that I think can play San Francisco. And do I think that they beat San Francisco or keep it close right now? No, because I don't think the Bengals are at their best. But in the NFL, at their best, Eagles, Chiefs, Bengals, and Bills are probably the only 4 teams I would say can beat the San Francisco 49ers. They have to play their best football game, or Brock Purdy has to get hurt. Like, I hate to say it like that, or McCaffrey. Like, that's the only way the 49ers are losing a football game right now.
Yeah, I agree with you entirely. The only other fantasy takeaway I will say is I think Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb, they're underperforming right now, but they're 2 very talented players. The last 2 teams that they faced were New England, who they absolutely smoked, did not have a need to pound the rock to them, and San Fran, who smoked them. So they're going to get the Chargers, the Rams, the Eagles. They always play
the
tough.
Giants, the Commanders,
Carolina,
twice.
Washington, like Seattle. There's a very big stretch. I would go trade for them, not this week because they might explode against the Chargers. But when they go into the bye week, they see the Rams, they see the Eagles. That's a tough schedule for someone to look at. Tony Pollard running up against Aaron Donald and that Eagles front 7.
Packers at the Raiders on Monday Night Football. Jordan Love is who I thought Jordan Love was. Like, I'm just saying that now. I'll keep saying it. Aaron Jones was out, I think, with an ankle injury. I don't think he was expected to be out, but he was, and he seems to be the heartbeat of that offense. So I think that offense and Love specifically will suffer without Aaron Jones. So do you have any other fantasy takeaways from this one?
I think Jacoby Myers is someone that you should be targeting trade wise.
And he's outperforming everything right now, which is awesome.
He's played 4 games this season. He had one low of 5.3. 2 weeks ago, and then he's had 15, 20, and 29. He's averaging 17 points per game on the year. I think he's someone you should be targeting, even though he's the wide receiver 2 on his team, and he will have ups and downs. He's not going to be very valued. And if you have a guy like Jerome Ford, I think that's a great name where if you don't want that running back for the Browns, and you need a wide receiver, that's a great player you could go trade away for him. Like, I think there's a lot of value to Jacoby Myers that's not going to get talked about and not going to get enough hype because Devontae Adams is still the one there, but he's been playing very well. He's in the top 20, and that's for a guy that has missed the game this year already. So there's going to be better days, and it should be a very good rest of the season for him.
All right. So that's our recap of week 5. If you enjoyed this episode and you're a first-time listener or not a first-time listener and you still haven't done these things, you can subscribe on all audio streaming platforms, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and Anchor. Please give us a 5-star rating and a review. If you want to subscribe and watch and listen on our YouTube channel, it's PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Hit the subscribe button, drop a like on this video, hit the little bell guy, and then you get notifications every time we go live. You can follow us and interact with us on social media, PrimeTimeFFPod, Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, PrimeTime Fantasy Podcast. Twitter is the absolute best place for you to ask us your questions on Sunday mornings, waiver pickups, etc. And then obviously we will have more content ramping up over the next few weeks. So thank you guys for joining. Thank you for watching and supporting us. And we'll talk to you guys next week.